A very good evening. You are watching Rajya Sabha Television. I'm Smriti Rastogi with News Tonight. Let's begin the bulletin with the top headlines. Press conference of opposition parties that gave notice of the impeachment motion against Chief Justice violated provisions of Handbook of Rajya Sabha members. Sources say the handbook prohibits advance publicity to any notice till the chairman admits it. Union Cabinet approves ordinance to award death penalty for rape of children up to 12 years of age. New provision to be added to the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences or POSCO Act to accommodate the death sentence. Cabinet also passes the Fugitive Economic Offenders Ordinance. It allows confiscating properties of economic offenders who flee the country. Disruptions had prevented the bill from being passed in the Lok Sabha in the budget session. Prime Minister's development mantra for civil servants: make the best of innovation and technology in implementing government policies. Calls participatory democracy or Jan Bhagidari a must for speedy development of the nation. An international community welcomes North Korea's decision to discontinue nuclear tests and missile launches. Announcement comes ahead of North Korea leader Kim Jong-un's planned summit meetings with South Korean President Moon Jae-in and US President Donald Trump. The Union Cabinet approved an ordinance to award death penalty for rapists of girls below 12 years of age by amending the POSCO Act. The ordinance also calls for speedy trials in such cases. The move comes in the wake of the cases of rapes of minors in Kathua and Unnao, and a week after Prime Minister Modi said that no criminal will be spared and daughters will get justice.
The Union Cabinet on Saturday approved an ordinance to amend the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act to grant death penalty for the rape of children under the age of 12 years. Under the ordinance, rapists of a girl below the age of 12 will be sentenced to death or given life imprisonment. In case of rape of a girl below 16 years, the punishment was raised to 20 years in jail from 10 years. The punishment can also be extended to life imprisonment. Minimum punishment in the case of rape of women was increased from rigorous imprisonment of 7 years to 10 years, extendable to life imprisonment. The measure also provides for speedy investigation and trial. Investigation in cases of rape has to be mandatorily completed within 2 months. The deadline for the completion of trial in all rape cases will be 2 months. A 6-month time limit for the disposal of appeals in rape cases has been prescribed. No provision for anticipatory bail for a person accused of rape or gang rape of a girl under 16 years.
यूनियन कैबिनेट के द्वारा लिया गया ये निर्णय एक अध्यादेश लाने के लिए मैं मानता हूं पूरे देश की जनता और खासकर महिलाएं इस प्रकार की इस कदम की सराहना करेंगे।
लेकिन सजा सख्त हो, जल्द हो, तुरंत हो और तत्काल निर्णय हो सके। फास्ट ट्रैक्स की जो कोर्ट्स होते हैं उसमें।
So I welcome this move and this was much needed. But with this, in the same breath, I would like to say that we need fast track courts and implementation of the law, which is very, very necessary at this time.
The Indian Penal Code, the Evidence Act, the Code of Criminal Procedure and the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act will stand amended once the ordinance is promulgated after the approval of President Ramnath Kovind. Earlier on Friday, the centre told the Supreme Court that it is actively considering amending the POCSO Act to introduce death penalty.
बिल्कुल सही डिसीजन है। इनफैक्ट 12 साल से कम या 12 साल से ऊपर भी हो, लाइक एवरीवन डिजर्व इट। हर किसी को होना चाहिए, डेथ का होना चाहिए। अकॉर्डिंग टू मी ये बहुत सही किया है। इनफैक्ट मैं तो ये कहती हूँ ये चीज़ बहुत पहले हो जानी चाहिए थी।
Protection of Children from Sexual Offences or POCSO Act was enacted to prevent and deal with crimes against children. The POCSO Act was enacted in 2012. It protects children from offences like sexual assault, sexual harassment and pornography. The POCSO Act defines any person below the age of 18 years as a child, hence protecting minors from sexual offences. The Act provides for punishments ranging from 5 years to life imprisonment and now death penalty. Hearing for cases under the POCSO Act are held in special courts. With inputs from Ravindra Shoran, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And in another major decision, the Union Cabinet approved the Finance Ministry's proposal to promulgate the Fugitive Economic Offenders Ordinance 2018. The ordinance provides for confiscating properties and assets of economic offenders who flee the country even without conviction. The provisions of the ordinance will apply to economic offenders who refuse to return or those against whom an arrest warrant has been issued. Willful bank loan defaulters with outstanding amount of over 100 crore rupees will also be covered under this ordinance. The ordinance is aimed at deterring economic offenders from evading the process of law by remaining outside the jurisdiction of the Indian court. The Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill was introduced in Lok Sabha on March 12th but could not be passed due to logjam in the parliament over various issues. And questions are being raised on the opposition's impeachment notice against Chief Justice Deepak Mishra and making public the content of the notice in a press conference. The move by the Rajya Sabha members of the Congress and other opposition parties is in violation of the rules of the House. As per the provisions of Handbook for members of Rajya Sabha, members can't make public any notice to be taken up in the House till the time it's admitted by the chairman. In the Lok Sabha, under the Rule 334A, members can't make public contents of any notice given to the Speaker till the time the Speaker admits it. On to some more developments. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed civil servants on Civil Services Day in the national capital on Saturday. The Prime Minister asked civil servants to make the best of innovation and technology in implementing government policies. He also called participatory democracy a must for the development of the nation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed civil servants on the occasion of the 12th Civil Services Day on Saturday. He said that year 2022, the 75th anniversary of independence, could become an inspiration to achieve a new India or the India of the dreams of freedom fighters. The Prime Minister said priority should be given to people's interest while formulating policies or new law, as people's participation is the cornerstone of Indian democracy.
भारत जैसे देश में सफलता के लिए हमारी लोकतांत्रिक व्यवस्था ये कोई 5 साल के कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिस्टम नहीं है जी। हमारी डेमोक्रेटिक व्यवस्था यानी हम और जनता के बीच का नाता है, ये जो सोच है वो एक सबसे बड़ी रुकावट है। और इसलिए जन भागीदारी भारत जैसे देश की सफलता का आधार है participatory democracy.
The Prime Minister asserted that all available technology, including space technology, should be used to improve governance. He said it was important for civil servants to keep pace with emerging technologies worldwide.
आज सद्भाग्य से टेक्नोलॉजी हमारी कमियों को पूरा कर सकती है, हमारी वो एडिशनल स्ट्रेंथ बन सकती है। हम चीजों का सरलीकरण करने के लिए टेक्नोलॉजी का भरसक उपयोग कर सकते हैं।
The Prime Minister also conferred awards for excellence in public administration for effective implementation of priority programs and innovation to districts and implementing units. He released 2 books, New Pathways and Aspirational Districts, Unlocking Potentials on the occasion. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi is back home after his 5-day foreign visit to Sweden, UK and Germany. He returned home earlier today and was received at the airport by External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj. Before returning home, during his brief stopover in Berlin, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he had a wonderful meeting with the German Chancellor Angela Merkel and discussed multiple aspects relating to bilateral cooperation as well as other global issues. He said the visit also demonstrates India's mutual desire to strengthen the strategic partnership. Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Merkel comes after German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier's trip to India last month, which focused on boosting economic and strategic ties between the two countries. And Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu inaugurated the first national conference on online dispute resolution mechanism. Lauding the initiative, Naidu said the fast-track dispute resolution shall go a long way in resolving disputes. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu emphasized the need for quick resolution of disputes. Inaugurating the first national conference on online dispute resolution mechanism, he said it is a laudable initiative to fast-track dispute resolution. The Vice President further said, with the rapid development of internet and electronic commerce, online disputes resolution is a logical and natural step as it speeds up the process.
With the increase of e-commerce and e-business, many disputes arise between parties across borders, and online dispute resolution is therefore the need of the hour. It basically seeks to fast-track solutions.
Speaking at the event, the Vice President said reforms like GST and demonetization have strengthened the economy. He also said that smart dispute resolution mechanism will attract more foreign investment by projecting India as an investor-friendly country.
In order to ensure speedy resolution of commercial disputes and facilitate effective conduct of international and domestic disputes, it is necessary to adopt various dispute resolution mechanisms. This shall also encourage foreign investments, because now we have thrown open, FDI is allowed everywhere. And also you have gone for a PPP model, public-private partnership also. You are also creating SPVs, special purpose vehicles, in the smart cities and other projects also.
Vice President Naidu stressed on the need for a better mechanism to overcome obstacles in implementation of key government schemes. The National Conference on Online Dispute Resolution Mechanism was inaugurated by the Construction Industry Arbitration Council. Navikram Singh's report for Rajya Sabha TV. And Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has called for ending the urban-rural divide in providing medical care. First graduation day function of the Malla Reddy Institute of Medical Sciences in Hyderabad, Vice President Naidu said that people in rural areas must have access to affordable quality health care. He said that rural areas are underserved in terms of medical facilities and staff. Vice President Naidu added that India needs a multi-pronged strategy to improve the well-being of the people.
Why people are leaving villages and coming to towns? Education, employment, entertainment, enhanced economic upliftment, and enhanced medical facilities. For these 5, people are leaving the villages. We must see to it that these facilities are also created in the rural areas. That should be the policy, that should be the priority of the government. I hope that the central government and state governments, irrespective of party affiliations, will think in terms of that and try to take care of this urban-rural divide. 52% of the people are living in rural areas even today. That means more than half of the population. So that being the case, and that's why I was suggesting everywhere that doctors who enter the medical profession and join the government service, before they get first promotion, they must also work in rural areas. It should be made mandatory.
And former Union Minister Yashwant Sinha on Saturday quit the BJP and alleged that there was a threat to democracy under the present dispensation. Sinha made the announcement at a meeting attended by opposition leaders from the Congress and the RJD, besides dissident BJP leader and Patna Sahib MP Shatrughan Sinha. He, however, made it clear that he would retire and not join any other political party. Meanwhile, the BJP said it was not surprised by his decision, as it was clear from his opinions and actions that he had been acting at the behest of the Congress.
आज यहाँ इस मंच से ये बताने के लिए आया हूँ आपको कि 4 साल पहले मैंने चुनावी राजनीति से संन्यास लिया। आज 4 साल के बाद मैं दलगत राजनीति से संन्यास ले रहा हूँ।
And with that, time for a very short break. More news and updates on the other side. Stay with us.
As on today, the inland fisheries contribute 65% of the fish production of the India. So we are one of the propagating the inland sectors, the productivity enhancement, which is we are looking with the state governments. We have categorized 100 NutriFish index. If you take this fish, then instead of taking the capsules for the micronutrient vitamins, and you can reduce that thing.
Watch Eureka with Dr. B.K. Das, Director ICAR, Central Inland Fisheries Research Institute, Kolkata, at Saturday 4 p.m. and Sunday 12 noon, only on Rajya Sabha television. Welcome back. Let's take a look at news from the pole-bound state of Karnataka. The Congress on Saturday released its list of star campaigners for the upcoming Karnataka Assembly elections. The list includes names of former Union Ministers Ghulam Nabi Azad and Sushil Kumar Shinde. Former BJP leader and now Minister in Punjab government Navjot Singh Sidhu also figures in the list. Due to ill health, former Congress President Sonia Gandhi won't be campaigning for her party in the poll-bound Karnataka. Besides, names of former UP Chief Minister and Samajwadi Party leader Akhilesh Yadav, RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav and NCP Supremo Sharad Pawar have also been included in the list of Congress's star campaigners. And Bengaluru and its surrounding districts have seen a huge rise in energy consumption. The peak daily load of Bangalore city area has touched over 2,000 megawatts. Besides this, the surrounding areas need an additional 3,000 megawatt for industrial use. Sustainability and environment friendly are key concerns for the future. In order to be able to do this, the government is promoting huge investments in solar power generation. Amritanshu Rai brings us this report.
The Maharaja of Mysore for the first time started a hydroelectricity power plant in 1902, which is known as the Sivasamudram project. The power generated out of this project was used to extract gold from the Kolar minefields. And that time the installed capacity of that project was merely 42 megawatts. But times have changed. Now, Bangalore and its surrounding areas need much more energy than that. It is nearly 5,000 megawatts.
Today there is a huge gap of demand and supply, which is resulting in the extreme pressure that the city is facing, not just in terms of transportation.
In order to do this, the Bangalore Electricity Supply Company was established in 2002, which continues to provide power services to 8 districts and nearly 2 crore population.
You know, the state required about 5,000 million units. It's about 2 decades earlier. Today it's about 50,000 million units. And about 30% or 32% is the industrial consumption. Then another sector is the agriculture sector.
What is new and where I am standing is the new story in energy. This is the Pavagada solar fields. This is in Tumkur district and harvests the light of sun to give you environment friendly, eco-friendly power. The installed capacity of Pavagada solar fields is 2,000 megawatts, but at the moment they have just touched 650 megawatts. That's the electricity that this solar field generates as of now.
2000 megawatt is the proposed installed capacity. 600 megawatt we have this, and that region has the higher solar radiation. So that means we have the electricity which is required by the industry during the daytime. You can use it without storing.
The need of solar power to bridge the gap between the conventional and the hydroelectricity power is the new way that Karnataka has taken. Last year, the solar power generation of Karnataka was just 250 megawatts. This year, it has tripled to nearly 880 megawatts. And Why would you ask is the need for such huge amounts of energy? Bangalore and its surrounding areas are quickly becoming industrialized, and the industry needs more and more power. So does the new infrastructure project in Bangalore city. Amritanshu Rai, Tumkur for Rajya Sabha TV.
And rapid urbanization is killing the lakes of Bengaluru. The rate at which it is happening, the city may just be one of the first to face a real water crisis. Adding to the citizens' woes is the overexploitation of groundwater, leading to receding groundwater levels. Our correspondent Amritanshu Rai's report.
With natural water bodies becoming victims of concretization and rainwater harvesting being a low priority, Bengaluru's future appears grim in terms of meeting water requirements of its 1 crore plus people.
When you look at the current the number of lakes in Bangalore, we have 193 water bodies in the lake. We have done the studies of these lakes during the last 3 years, and our study shows 98% of the lakes have been encroached and about 93% are sewage fed and have the industrial contamination.
The impending crisis was flagged by the Karnataka government when it admitted that availability of water per person per day will be 88 litres by the year 2031, when the city's population will touch 2 crore. As of now, the prescribed water usage for domestic use is 135 litres per person per day.
Groundwater table is declining because of the unplanned urbanization, over concretization. We are not recharging the groundwater resources. At the same time, exploitation has gone up because of the large number of high-rise buildings.
According to a research report by the Centre for Ecological Study of the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, the city's current monthly requirement is 1.5 TMC feet. 1 TMC feet of water is equal to 2,816 crore litres, and it can cater to the needs of 6 lakh people per year.
What you see behind me is the Hebbal water reservoir or the Hebbal lake in Bengaluru. There were several such lakes in Bengaluru at one point of time, and then Bengaluru could hold 35 TMC feet of water in its water reservoirs. But now that has reduced to just 2 TMC feet of water. Amritanshu Rai, Rajya Sabha TV, Bengaluru.
And on to some more national developments. BJP President Amit Shah on Saturday held a rally in Rai Bareilly district of Uttar Pradesh. Addressing the people at the rally, Shah said his party would rid Rai Bareilly, the Lok Sabha constituency of former Congress President Sonia Gandhi, of Parivarvad and take it on the path of development. He said that Rai Bareilly voted for top Congress leaders but had not witnessed development since independence.
रायबरेली ने आजादी से अब तक परिवारवाद देखा है, विकास नहीं देखा है। मैं आज आपको आश्वस्त करने आया हूं, रायबरेली को परिवारवाद से भारतीय जनता पार्टी मुक्त कर विकासवाद के रास्ते पर ले जाने के लिए आज से अभियान शुरू करने वाला हूं।
President Ram Nath Kovind termed Sanskrit as the language of science and spirituality. Addressing the 17th convocation of Lal Bahadur Shastri Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapeeth in New Delhi on Saturday, President Kovind said works of Aryabhat, Bhaskar and other scientists and mathematicians were composed in Sanskrit. The President also said the real test of education is to make a good human being. He said, other than providing knowledge, the education system should also inculcate moral values.
अच्छे मनुष्य का निर्माण करना शिक्षा की असली कसौटी होती है। यह आवश्यक है कि शिक्षा व्यवस्था मूल्य केंद्रित हो, न कि केवल ज्ञान केंद्रित। शिक्षा का प्रमुख उद्देश्य है व्यक्ति का संवेदनशील और चरित्रवान है कि संस्कृत भाषा में भारत की आत्मा परिलक्षित होती है। संस्कृत भाषा अनेक भारतीय भाषाओं की जननी। सबसे महत्वपूर्ण बात यह है कि संस्कृत भाषा में उपलब्ध ज्ञान को प्रसारित करना विश्व कल्याण के लिए आज बहुत प्रासंगिक है।
An External Affairs Minister, Sushma Swaraj, is in Beijing to take part in the meeting of the foreign ministers of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to be held on 24th April. Sushma Swaraj is expected to meet her Chinese counterpart Wang Yi on Sunday to take forward attempts by both countries to reset ties following last year's Doklam standoff. The other issues of concern for India include China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, China blocking India's entry into the nuclear suppliers group, as well as its opposition's efforts to list Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar as the global terrorist by the UN. Apart from Sushma, Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will also be in China to take part in the SCO Defence Ministers meeting. The SCO meetings are a prelude to the summit of the 8-member group. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to take part in the SCO summit to be held in June. And more news from the international front ahead of the planned summits with South Korea and the United States. And North Korea said on Saturday that it would immediately suspend nuclear and missile tests and will scrap its nuclear test site. North Korea's announcement has been widely welcomed by the world community.
Many nations on Saturday welcomed North Korea's announcement to halt nuclear and missile tests. Leader Kim Jong-un said further tests were not needed as North Korea had demonstrated it had nuclear weapons. US President Donald Trump described the move as good news for the world, while South Korea called it a meaningful progress. North Korea is preparing for historic summits with South Korea and the US.
I'll be meeting with Kim Jong-un in the coming weeks to discuss the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Hopefully that meeting will be a great success, and we're looking forward to it. It would be a tremendous thing for North Korea and a tremendous thing for the world.
Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he had hope for North Korean negotiations. The EU called move was positive even as it stressed complete denuclearization. Russia's foreign ministry also welcomed it but called on the US and South Korea to reduce their military activity in the region. China, who's North Korea's main backer, said this move will help ease tensions on the Korean peninsula and promote denuclearization.
提高人民生活水平，中方对此表示欢迎。中方认为，朝方有关决定有助于进一步缓和半岛局势，有助于推动半岛无核化和半岛问题政治解决进程。
Earlier on Saturday, Kim Jong-un said from 21st April, North Korea will stop nuclear tests and launches of intercontinental ballistic missiles. The surprise announcement relayed by the country's KCNA news agency also said a test site will be shut down.
주체 107, 2018년 4월 21일부터 핵시험과 대륙간 탄도로켓 시험 발사를 중지할 것이다. 핵시험 중지를 투명성 있게 담보하기 위하여 공화국 북부 핵시험장을 폐기할 것이다.
The decision to halt missile tests is also aimed at pursuing economic growth, according to KCNA. The US and its allies have been pushing Pyongyang to abandon nuclear weapons. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And that's all we have for you in this edition of News Tonight. Keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.